All right, I think we're live. Sweet. Okay, welcome to seventh period. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hope she can see me. Think she can see me?
Yeah. Yep.
Hi, Dr. Richardson. Okay, after that, we'll forget it's even there. So we're shifting gears a little bit before we eventually come back to Michaela's lyrics, etc. Right? Totally, bro. So in the meantime, here's what we're about. We continue to be about sussing out what are the literary and sound devices, and not only identifying them, Peyton, but also trying to say what they
mean.
What is the meaning, right? Sends shivers down my spine, as if any of us could ever forget Queen's good words. We're determining the meanings of words and phrases that are used in a text, etc. And I've added a cultural standard. The state of Alaska, in addition to, you're familiar with the idea of standards, like you got to know long division, things like that. There's another set of what are called cultural standards. These have to do with how we relate to our own culture and how we relate to other cultures, and specifically Alaskan cultures. And that's kind of what we're going to get into today with poetry. So culturally knowledgeable students, you people, are able to engage effectively in learning activities that are based on traditional ways of knowing and learning. So we're going to get into a little bit of that today. We're going to do that with a couple of different sources. One is a guy named John Haynes, very recent contemporary poet, and the other is a group of Alaska Native writers, storytellers, and orators. This is a really interesting book from a lot of different Alaska Native groups. We're going to kind of focus today on a few you can see there in the brackets at the end that are a little closer to home. Tlingit and Haida writers. Questions so far? Sweet. So we're going to continue to be about the same stuff. Along with all of this, we've got an exit ticket for you, which hopefully you'll be allowed access to. And you're familiar with this format? Similar to PE, right? The more you can get good at and comfortable with assessing yourself, I think that the better it'll serve you. Because it's helpful to get advice from so-called experts, but within yourself, that's the longer-term skill, right? You don't always have a teacher breathing down your neck, pressuring you to get things in. The more you can internalize that process and be able to suss out for yourself, where am I going, what adjustments do I need to make, things like that, that'll serve you well. Questions before we jump in? Mr. Schmidt, just please give us the poetry. Fine, I'll give you the poetry. I've got a packet of them for you. Make sure you put your name on them. I'll pass those down. And a couple gentlemen in the back. Sweet. What should we do first? John Haynes or Native orators, writers, and storytellers?
The Ice Child.
The Ice Child. Next. That would be John Haynes. Any brave volunteers want to read the thing? Thank you, Michaela. Nice and loud, please.
Cold for so long, unable to speak, yet your mouth seems framed on a cry or a stifled question. Who placed you here and left you to this lonely eternity of ash and ice, and himself returned to the dust fields, the church and the temple? Was it God, the sun god of the Incas, the imperial god of the Spaniards, or only the priests of that god? Self-elected, voice of a volcano that speaks once in 100 years. And I wonder, with your image before me, what life might you have lived? Had you lived at all? Those companions whose love, to be perhaps no more than a slave of that earthly master. A jug of water on your shoulder. Year after stunted year, a bundle of reeds and corn kindling for fire on whose buried hearth. There were furies to be fed, then as now, blood to fatten the sun, the heart for the lightning to strike. And now the furies walk the streets, a swarm of the milling crowd. They stand to the podium, speak of their coming ascension. Through all the drift and clamor, you have survived in this cramped and haunted effigy.
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 Nailed it.
Another entry on the historian's dated page. Under the weight of this mountain, once a god, now only restless stone, we find your interrupted life, placed here among the trilobites.
Perfect.
In shells, so late on earth.
Is this poem more difficult than some of the ones we've been reading lately?
Yeah.
What makes a poem difficult, do you think? The words are part of it. Words like effigy and trilobites. Part. What else? It's just something to think about. It's not one of our main questions, what makes a poem difficult, but it's a question. Michaela, excellent job reading. Did you notice how well she did with the enjambment? Remember what enjambment means literally? Yeah, jambe, French for leg, right? You'll try and get that image out of your mind when you read poetry. Nope, my lengthy self. Okay, so take a couple of minutes after Michaela's fine reading, look through on your own for literary devices. You can use on your own computer or up on this one. I'll have the toolbox up there for you. That's a good question, is it?
Well, it's kind of like Sarah Kay, the question had about it. Kind of.
That's an interesting thought. Think more about how and why. But comparing two poems can be a really helpful exercise. Take just about another minute to wrap up your thoughts. I'm not going to spend forever with this one. And after that, I'm gonna have you talk with someone else about it. Can we have Michaela, Dawson, Pepe, and Silas, and Eliza, Jesse partner up, please? Share what you got.
I don't know.
Give each other feedback on what you think.
Yeah.
Mine
like,
furry.
who placed you here and, was it God? Or the Healy, the old God and Nards, the church and the temple, question mark. And yeah, I also thought it was kind of religious. And like, it kind of went from questions here to the telling story here.
I didn't know if this was the most of those
Do volcanoes have, are volcanoes human beings? Are we giving them human characteristics?
Then I said there's a, keeps mentioning.
Are we, or are we not?
Well, pretty
Yeah,
small.
that's what actually it should say.
Are you sure?
In a way
Very frequent on here.
But in general, do we think of voices as being human? Is volcano human? Are we giving a non-human thing human characteristics? Ooh, I like this. Unless it's one of those. Yeah. Nice. See, it's all everywhere, everywhere. One of the most important things you can know. You see any just that one line.
They're being fed,
Furies to be fed.
so they're possibly killing off people and eating them.
Maybe.
Eating their flesh possibly, I'm not sure.
But is flesh eating a literary device necessarily?
No.
Probably not. But furies to be fed. Think about it. Like we ready to bring it together?
Yeah.
I think we are. There's sort of Greek mythology getting talked about back there, and I like that. So, what you got? Before we get into details, what's the overall mood? What's the tone of the poem?
Sad. Kind of like a sad.
It's not like happy, happy, joy, joy, right? It's not, I throw my hands up in the air sometimes singing, hey-yo, hey-yo. So, sad?
Maybe he's angry because he's sad.
Interesting. Michaela had that as a question on her paper. I really like that. Once again, notes, observations, questions. So, questions like, is the narrator angry? Maybe because he or she is sad. It's an interesting question. Other thoughts on tone? If it's sad, what makes you say that? Or angry, what makes you say that?
Commas, kind of like where they're placed. And
Jimmy, What's he talking about? What's the subject?
Creating an inner child, trying to make these situations happen.
Wow.
So
Why do you say that?
this looks like the eyes child, so he's kind of
Ah,
lonely and
interesting.
maybe trying to find his inner child.
Wow,
He keeps referring to different gods and what they're seeing.
indeed. The god of the Spaniards or the Incas. Interesting. I like how you both go back to the text, right? And then if you can make an argument about that with the commas, right? Or based on the title. Drawing things from the text, that's how we roll in literary criticism.
Well, like, this is off page, from the part I was like, I used to think that it was about a person who the narrator used to know is totally different.
Hmm.
Now that Peyton was saying that, and it could be like the child inside of him, because who placed you here and left you to this lonely eternity of ice and ash? It could be the child inside. I'm pretty sure that is because who left you here? I was the one that left you here. So I have to grow up and go on to do this, and forgetting the total fact that I had to put frozen to ice. He's trying to break back into it. But
We have a distinct Peter Pan thing going here, don't we? We were
Yeah.
talking about fairies and mythology, and now we're talking about, right, leaving behind a child. Interesting. Silas, what you got? The poem's about Peter Pan. No, it's not.
I think the poem, a writer could be writing about the person reading the poem. It says, like, carrying a jug of water on your shoulder. Find your interrupted life, and you have survived. In haunted effigy.
Effigy. What's an effigy? What category here on our table, our toolbox for literary analysis, what category would a question about a word like effigy fit into, do you think?
Word choice.
Yeah, definitely word choice. Probably, which of those? Denotations, connotations,
connotations,
maybe.
it could possibly.
I know Ms. Meyer invited you to open your computer. Effigy. It's such a good word. And especially with poetry. Again, every word matters. Michaela's right, even the commas matter. Especially if we're talking about time going by, pauses, going back, right? Michaela.
Got it right here.
A sculpture or model of a person.
A
Interesting.
perfectly made model of a particular person needed or to be damaged or destroyed as a protest or expression of anger.
Did you get that?
So you make it to just destroy it?
So it would be like you would make a model or a doll of Mr. Schmidt and then just beat the stuffing out of it or burn it to be burned in effigy. Crazy, right? That's a real image. So go back and read that line with effigy, Silas.
So, you're all this drift and clamor, you have survived. In this cramped and haunted effigy, another entry of the historian's dated page.
Whoa.
So in this cramped and haunted sculpture of a person.
Yeah.
So it's called a child, something like that.
Interesting.
And
Something made to be destroyed, right? And why is it destroyed? Maybe. So the body's the cramped effigy and the soul has moved on? Whoa.
And
I think that when I first said that, I think that the narrator is angry and he's sad at the same time. And it's kind of like when you're writing or something, and first you're sad, and then you kind of get angry, and so effigy is kind of one of the words that after I read the definition of it, it kind of connected to my idea at the very beginning
About
of how he was angry and sad.
interesting.
So it just like made her ideas seem more like actual.
Yeah. Remember I brought up the detective looking for clues recently? It's kind of, it kind of makes me feel like that. Like, I've got an idea, maybe it's about this. You find out the clues, and, oh man. Yeah. Cool. Does that mean that the anger is the right answer to the question necessarily? But it might be a What literary devices do you find in there?
Mostly found metaphors.
Metaphors? Can you give an example?
Where it was like, voice of a volcano is kind of like personification and a metaphor because it was giving a voice to a volcano. And,
I like that. Eliza?
Before, like, the whole talk about, like, a person, the soul inside the person or whatever, I kind of thought that it was, like, about, like, a black child or academic child or something like that, because it says to perhaps no more than a slave of the earthly master,
Interesting.
or a servant or something, and then, yeah.
Interesting. That word slave.
And of that earthly master.
Yep. Or at least brings up the idea. Would you say that's denotation or connotation? Connected ideas, right? He's not necessarily talking about black slaves in the South 150 years ago. But slaves and masters brings up those kinds of feelings of bondage and maybe injustice, but maybe that's interesting.
They kind of,
Yeah.
yeah, it kind of keeps on going, like with their idea, like jug of water on your shoulder.
How so?
Like, just thinking of that slave, and, like the word slave, like a jug of water on your shoulder,
Interesting.
trying to get water or something.
What do you think, Jesse?
Well, it's not really on that topic, but
It's okay.
it's, I don't know if you could, I think it's a metaphor, but I also, I wonder, with your image so funny, what life you might have lived, the image really, like, is it in front of him, and metaphorically saying,
Maybe.
the image, because sometimes you have images in your head and you can't fully see what it looks like, but it's still before you.
Is it a comparison? Metaphor. Comparison in which one thing is described as if it were another thing.
No.
But is it figurative language?
Yes.
Definitely. Don't you agree?
Yeah.
So, it doesn't have to necessarily fit into metaphor or simile. But you're right. With your image before me, that sounds like it's in his mind, right? Or her mind. But it's John Haynes, so probably his.
Yeah.
Furies to be fed, Dawson. What is that? Furies to be fed.
It is,
Is that a question or a statement?
I'm not remembering, in the Revelation one, it has the same.
If only it were like plastered all over a huge screen in front of you.
Like it really is.
It's totally plastered on a huge screen in front of you.
Yep, it's an alliteration.
Indeed. Repeated sounds at the beginning of words. Furies to be fed. And, Dawson, furies.
Greek mythological creatures, which are the servants of Hades, that punish the souls in the
Underworld.
underworld. Yep.
So super happy, joy, joy, right?
Actually, I think in a certain section of the underworld.
Yeah. So not happy at all, right?
Well, here, the Furies walk the street, and then the effigy means the,
So, like, ghosts.
so they kind of relate together because Furies is kind of like a hate or
Ooh.
something.
What else does fury mean?
Burning fire inside.
Yeah, yeah, fury. So,
So, the furies to be fed, the blood fattens on like the heart of the lightning strike. It walks the street, which is kind of like the effigy.
yeah, nice. And the heart, a heart for the lightning to strike, blood to fatten the sun. That's some figurative language, huh? Does blood really fatten the sun? How do you know? Have you ever been there?
What's
So-
not?
So, Jesse, you're kind of saying those images combine, right? And we see furies a couple of times, furies to be fed, and now the furies walk the streets. Is that a nice image, furies walking the streets? It kind of means hell is all around us, right?
I was gonna say, that fury kind of reminds me of like a fire, like kind of like a fire burning.
Yeah.
And then here he mentions in the summit stanza,
Yes.
kindling for the fire.
Yes.
Kind of like
Ooh,
repeated.
nice.
It's just feeding the fire.
Yeah.
inside of you.
Ooh, feeding the fire. And effigy, does that have to do with fire?
It's well, it's kind of cool because it says kindling for a fire, and then in the next stanza,
And then,
it mentions furies.
Yeah.
but it kind of starts at the beginning with the who left you here with the place of eternity, ash and ice. Ash with the fire,
But it's like the fire's already happened, right?
or it's happened, or you were left to a place of
Yeah.
fire which created you into the fire.
Mm.
It's like,
Man.
I think it's like the kindling is feeding the fire is feeding the furies, and the furies is like the effigy kind of.
Interesting.
So they're all kind of connected to each other.
Interesting. When I first saw Michaela's note, is the poet angry? I thought, that's kind of interesting. But golly, the more we go down that rabbit hole, it's like furies, effigies, kindling, rage. Golly, maybe yours a little ticked off. Okay, Eliza, what you got?
So I can't really remember if we talked about this, but that a fear is like a spirit of punishment.
Yeah,
Okay.
we didn't. I don't think we talked about punishment in particular.
But it's Greek mythology, the spirit of punishment, often represented as one of three goddesses.
Yep.
So, the,
Oh, and then he keeps mentioning the goddesses at the beginning.
So strong mythological connection. Connected ideas through words.
connotation.
Yeah, connotations. Connected. Connotations. True? You guys are good. No kidding. You were like magnificent at this. I appreciate it. My worry is that we get totally caught up in the next John Haynes poem and never get to Plinkett or Haida stuff at all. So,
Are we gonna do killers?
not today, but eventually, yes. Should we do speech for the removal of grief, raven, seagull, and crane, or beaver and groundhog were pals? How did I know that? Say what?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll
Something popped up.
get to more.
I think
Low battery.
Oh.
Hi, battery was low. Hopefully you're still there. Thanks. We're good.
Okay.
Beaver and groundhog were pals. Everybody got it?
Yeah.
Told in Haida. From Heidelberg, Alaska. You guys going there on POW on this trip?
Yep.
Another one of these, I don't know if you noticed, is Raven, Seagull, and Crane is by Willie Marks, Plinkett from Hoona. And Speech for the Removal of Grief is by Austin Hammond. Yeah, Plinkett from Haynes. So, that's pretty local, right?
Yeah.
Like you could throw a rock and hit it.
Yeah.
Come on, Mom.
Hey, I throw a rock pretty good, right? Beaver, not POW, Haynes.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
15. Beaver and Groundhog were pals, told in Haida. Beaver and Groundhog were going to be friends. They were getting to be pals. And eventually, Beaver went everywhere together with Groundhog. After a while, Beaver swam Groundhog out to his island. Groundhog was not able to swim. He lived only underground. After he stayed with him for a while, Beaver swam away from him. The beaver lodge formed an island. He left him on the island. Beaver was gone for a while. After he left, he started to worry, and his food ran out. Beaver went around in the woods eating tree bark. He would go about felling trees and eat the bark. When he didn't come back, he started to worry. And when the hunger hit him, and he went outside, and when there was no sign of Beaver returning, he started to sing. Forgive me, I can't do justice to that singing in Haida. After this, he went inside again. Again, after he stayed in the house for a long time, he kept singing for freezing weather. He kept feeling this water. After singing this for a while, pieces of ice began to float. He kept singing. And after singing for freezing weather for a long time, while he was singing, the water froze. He ran out across the ice, and he was saved in this way. And they stopped seeing each other. There, it is finished. Is that even a poem?
Yeah.
Why?
Kind of like, horse in the hair.
Interesting. Like the tortoise and the hare. You know who wrote that? Nailed it. Aesop. Aesop's Fables.
I think this kind of the repetition in it kind of should as a poem, like when it says, like when Beaver and Groundhog were getting to be friends, they were getting to be pals, like,
Yeah.
it kind of already said that, and they're getting to be friends,
Nice.
so I think the repetition kind of made it more of,
Yep.
somewhat of a repetition, I think.
Yep. Cool. I think that's totally, you're on the right track. Other things that convince us this is a poem?
Not all ones. Since not all ones are the same, there's like favorites and haiku, and there's also the red ones, and not all the names have that, so it can sound like favorite poems.
Yeah, does this have regular meter or rhyme scheme?
Doesn't understand it.
Definitely. Might it rhyme?
Yeah.
You think that part in Haida rhymes? Read it. Out loud, please, just kidding.
Yeah, because the
Look at the
eyes,
ends, yeah,
the eyes, the lines end with I,
the eyes have it. So maybe
maybe it rhymes.
maybe in the original Haida it all rhymes. Don't know.
Well, there's the same word 4 times.
Yes. At the end of the first
The first
two lines and, yep.
And that Saxon and Anna, that's mentioned 3 times
Yep.
within the song.
Wait, what was it again? What was it?
The Saxaani.
You using her for your entertainment?
I don't
No,
know.
seriously, I was trying to figure out what she said.
Oh, gotcha. I thought you were just pulling Mr. Schmidt. And did you read the note about that little part?
They changed it.
Yeah. The Haida text uses only pronouns. The song is puzzling. It is not in Haida. Many words could be Tlingit, but it doesn't make complete sense in Tlingit either. It seems to be some kind of spirit song or incantation. Rad, right? As if a song to make the water freeze is going to be in any way normal or even recordable.
Maybe he
I
also,
would love that.
it could have also been like, kind of like near winter, he was just speaking a lot.
Hmm.
So he,
Could be
when winter
coincidence.
just came.
Interesting. Interesting. Is this a narrative?
Kind of tells a story though,
It does tell a story.
but it doesn't have any.
What are those, like, but, not, like, the short stories, but it's not Greek mythology, it's about, normally about animals or plants or something?
Haiku?
No. Do you know how to write them next to?
Are you thinking, yeah?
Kind of?
Folk tales, maybe?
Yeah.
I think so. Does this have the feeling of a folk tale, mythology, Silas?
Like, is it beavers
Yeah,
that eat the trees?
yes.
Maybe he didn't do that before, and it was like kind of the tail that made him start eating trees.
Because
Interesting,
he couldn't find food.
interesting.
He started eating the bark.
Huh,
That makes sense.
so maybe it explains why the beavers eat the trees? Why the beavers and groundhogs aren't friends anymore?
And I think that the beavers and the groundhogs are like two of the groups inside the native culture.
Ooh.
You have like the
Like-
eagle.
Like eagle and raven and Tlingit?
Yeah.
And the groundhog didn't see shadows, so he called on the winter.
Ah, Punxsutawney Phil. Interesting. Yeah,
It could be two groups. Yeah.
maybe, that's interesting.
Like showing like two of the opposites can become friends.
Hmm,
And then as years went out,
They
the
separate.
natives kind of, like a lot of it has kind of gone out of Alaska, so maybe in the groundhog section it's kind of gone out a lot. And that's what it's
Interesting.
used, so it's kind of left, and then it also trailed off a lot too.
hmm. What trailed off a lot?
Native inside of that group, which kind of left it to the one little part, kind of hoping that it would snow, bring back more. And it started eating the bark, which was just kind of what it had left.
Hmm,
I like
interesting. You what?
I like this one.
What'd you like about it?
I just like the flow of it and how I just thought it had a good.
It's different, isn't it? I like it too. I find it helpful. Do you find any literary devices in here?
Repetition and how it repeats the lines
Yes.
and yeah.
We talked about repetition, and I think you brought it up, Peyton, as far as answering, is this a poem or not? And it can be a little tricky sometimes to know if it qualifies as poetry or not. But special language, I think, is part of what's going on there. Whether it's haiku, whether it's a song, whether it's poetry, whether it's mythology, whether it's epic poetry like the Odyssey or the Iliad, special language, I think, is part of what's going on there. Any, other than that repetition, any other literary devices? Okay, let's do one more. Let's do,
Speech for the removal of grief.
yeah, let's do that.
I'm trying here, Eliza. It's hard to, I can't see.
You're just like, look at the ground, look at the ground, isn't it beautiful?
Okay, I'll read this. This is speech for the removal of grief, spoken in Tlingit. This is from Austin Hammond, Haynes. I find this pretty beautiful as well. Once again, I'll have to apologize for not speaking Tlingit. We're short on time. I'm going to read it. Do you not have one?
I don't know which one you said it was.
Speech for the removal of grief. There you go. I'm going to read it. You mark it as we read even. Even though enjoyment does precede interpretation. Silas's favorite poet, T.S. Eliot, said.
Yep.
You ready? I too would like to speak. My father's brothers, my father's sisters, yes. How very much I too feel grief. Yes. That I am here, yes. But I can't even find anything to show you. At this moment, he came out here with it. Your father's brothers are listening to you. In many ways, when this would happen to you, used to talk. Here is his robe. He stands with it. Kit Ya'ani A'awe. How he used to speak of it when things were like this and when he expressed affection for his father's sisters. At this moment, we need them. And the one standing on this end, Ka'atye, he too. My mother's brother, Sagwalt, his robe, yes, I own it in place of him. Kit Ya'ani A'awe. And there is one more, Tsautsa'an, Gowaka'an. Thank you. There is one more. Yes, I will just explain it. It wasn't here. My father, Ki'it Ya'ana'ani. Ki'it Ya'ana'ani A'awe. This brother-in-law of yours spoke proudly of you. Ki'it Ya'ana'ai. Thank you. This Na'a Tuksjaye, whom we have, he too has also come here for your grief. Yes, to remove it from you. And now that blanket, it will be as if it has just become a kerchief in my hand. This is how I feel too, my father's sisters. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Is that a hard poem?
Sounds like it was hard for you to read.
Dude, it totally was.
You got the hang of it?
I tried. Sometimes it just, I don't know, sometimes it's helpful to struggle through something even like Michaela did with words that were new, but you rocked it. I think your new words sounded better than my new words. Yeah, little bit different structure, different in general. Anybody notice any literary elements in there?
The word yes is repeated a lot throughout the poem.
Indeed.
It's kind of like the ending of a
Kind of like the ending of a stanza. Yeah, the yes seems to kind of,
kind of like
The-
break it up.
the raven.
yes, ooh, nice. How?
Like
What did he say at the end?
Nevermore,
Nevermore.
more.
So like almost this, it becomes this code word that comes to mean something.
Yeah, and it's kind of like short lines with
Yep.
just few words in it.
That's right. Different from other things we read today. Michaela.
Me, when it, when she says yes, or the poet says yes when it's written, it does, to me it doesn't make sense. Like my mother's, that word,
Yep.
his robe, yes,
Hmm.
which, and then there is one more, yes. It
Hmm.
doesn't make sense really,
Interesting.
kind of. Like
So it must be there to serve a particular purpose.
yeah.
Interesting. Yes.
At the end of the poem, he says, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Hmm.
I thought it was interesting, he's very thankful for
Indeed.
what he
Reminds me of a psalm, you know? Kind of seems to have that rhythm to it. Almost a sacred song. Right?
Kind of feels like a sad, kind of lower.
You bet. Even if it didn't say speech for the removal of grief, I think the tone is unmistakable.
Yeah, and then when it said yes, it kind of like goes kind of against the tone that it actually is.
Well, I like that.
It
So,
doesn't always fit with what you think.
yeah. So you could talk about that juxtaposition. Remember, two things side by side that don't necessarily seem to fit. What about, and now I'm reading line 49. See how it lists those numbers to the left of the text?
Yeah.
That gives us line reference. So line 49. And now that blanket, it will be as if it has just become a kerchief in my hand. Any literary devices there, Silas? That blanket, do you agree? And now that blanket, it will be as if it has just become a kerchief in my hand.
The kerchief, like the little napkin.
Yeah, like a handkerchief. Could it be? Is it a comparison between the blanket and the kerchief? Does it use like or as? Are you sure? Only rarely.
yeah.
Yes. Only rarely would I ask a yes or no question. Hey, for homework, I want you to come back with the rest of this packet and at least 3 literary devices per poem. Fair?
Yep.
Thank you all.
Exit. I want you guys to fill out the exit ticket so that you have some feedback for Mr. Schmidt, please.
Yes.